Hi, it's Andrew here at Bayside. I remember when we were living back in Belfast, we had this fantastic home that our backyard had an adjoining fence with the local kindergarten, early stage school that our two youngest children went to. And it was an amazing thing because when I was working in the upstairs office, although I couldn't see into the school playground, do you know what I could hear? I could hear like hundreds of kids screaming, shouting, playing during the break time, but I could always hear my youngest boy's voice. It was crazy. With all the voices that were screaming, I could hear his voice. It wasn't because it was the loudest, it was the most distinct to me. And everybody, there's a lot of voices in our lives today. Voices everywhere shouting for us. They're coming in email, they're coming in text, they're coming in Instagram posts, they're coming in notifications. But there's one voice that I want to be the loudest in my life, and that is the voice of God. Not because he's shouting at me and he's the loudest, but because I know his voice more than any other voice. In John chapter 12, there's this great story of that last week in the life of Jesus, of where he's at Jerusalem and everyone's going there for the Passover. And there's a bunch of Greeks, like they've come into town, like, you know, they're on vacation in SoCal and they've got the ticket for Disney and they've got one for, you know, Universal Studios, and they might go to SeaWorld as well. Yeah. And they want to do all the attractions, and they hear about this guy called Jesus and they're thinking, been to the temple, check, got to meet the Jesus guy. And they get a hookup with Philip and they said, we want to see Jesus. And eventually they see Jesus, and Jesus goes like kind of all gnarly on them. He goes, hey, if you really want to see the Son of Man, well, be like a seed that dies and goes into the ground. Because if you don't, you remain a single seed. But if you do, you'll multiply and grow. And it was like, what? We wanted to see Jesus. And then it gets even more epic. He went, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your name. And this big voice comes from heaven. Son, I have glorified it. I will glorify it again through you. And everyone's like, wow, it thundered. Did you hear the voice? Did you get that on your iPhone? They didn't have iPhones. And it was like, everyone was like blown away by this. It was the voice of God. It was the voice of an angel. And Jesus said, that voice was for your sake, not for mine. Because Jesus didn't need the big shout, because he listened to the silent voice all the time. And you know what? A lot of Christians are looking for the dramatic. You know what God says? I'm always talking. How do you hear God? Well, today, just hear God through his written word. Pick up the scriptures today, and every day there's a fresh text message from God. And then also, and we're going to be talking about this at the weekend, the book of Colossians says that we have Christ in us, the hope of glory. And there's this still small voice of the Holy Spirit. If you're in a relationship and it's all shouting, it's not a healthy relationship. Relationships is talking and understanding the other person's voice. So I want to encourage you today. God's talking. Isn't that really cool? God is talking. Let's learn to listen to his voice. And if you're anywhere near a Bayside this weekend, come along, because we are talking about how to voice control your life. And we're going to be looking at some of the voices that we need to tune out, turn down, but how we need to turn up the voice of God. And if you're nowhere near a Bayside, you can get it on our website next week. But thank you for listening, and go out there today and hear and obey the still small voice of God.